the meeting. As long as you let me know we're ready. All right, good morning, folks. Today is August the 9th, 2022. We have a special meeting of the Indianapolis Library Board. I call this meeting to order. Angie, can we have a call to roll, please?
Yes, Mr. Biederman.
Present.
Mr. Bixby.
Present.
Dr. Matata.
Present.
Ms. Payne.
Present.
And Judge Salinas.
Present.
Thank you.
And there's no one who's, no board members are here via video. So we do have a quorum. And we have no one on who has signed up to speak, to my knowledge. So we're going to go ahead and go on to item 3, which is the Finance Committee. Dr. Payne, you are the chair.
Yes. The meeting of the Finance Committee will now come to order. Carolyn?
Thank you.
Well, this is a special meeting first. This is a special meeting first
Very
to
special.
go
meeting.
over the finance report, correct?
Yes, this is a special board meeting, a public hearing to review our 2023 budget proposal for the public.
As required by our process.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to join. I'm sorry, I'm getting some direction here from our legal counsel. I'm going to adjourn the special meeting and convey a public meeting to consider the 2023 library budget as advertised on July 29th and August 5th in the Indianapolis Star and posted on the library's website. I'm going to ask Carolyn and our interim CEO to go over the 2023 library budget.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, Mark.
Good morning.
I'll go ahead and start with that. This is a public hearing. The actual budget will be voted on by the board at our August 22nd board meeting. Let me get the first item up here. So today's August 9th, our public hearing. I'm having trouble changing pages. Real quickly, our budget calendar, which we've distributed these past few months at committee meetings. This just shows our budget calendar for the public and for the board. We have a date, September 22nd, listed on here. That is actually either going to be September 15th or September 22nd, when the library will be invited to the municipal corporation committee meeting held by the city council. And those are the dates that the CFO and the CEO will be presenting our 23 budget to the municipal corporation. And then on October 3rd, it goes on to be introduced to the city council meeting upon approval by the municipal corporation. Or that's where it's introduced. And then October 5th is when the municipal corporation meets to pass the budget. And then November 1st is when the city council would adopt the budget. And these dates have been taken from the city county council's calendars. The next page is a recap of our strategic plan, just showing our values and our strategic priorities as listed in the strategic plan, and how we were using the lens that we look through to focus our budgetary dollars on. The next page is just the library at a glance from 2021. This is various stats so that you know what we were doing at the library here with card holders. 30% of our population are card holders, and 51% of our card holders are active borrowers. It lists our circulation. We have 24 branch locations in 2021 with 1,500,000 walk-ins. Of course, this is during COVID, so those numbers may be down from prior years. And we had 6.9 million website visits. And along with our programs, and then we have our shared system, which is where we coordinate and work with local school systems to provide books. And we've signed up 44,000 of those children or students with card holders at the library. And we also list that we get $2.7 million from our Indianapolis Public Library Foundation. And we had 640 volunteers sign up. And they may, just not work, but they may volunteer an hour or they may volunteer 40 hours, but we had 640 unique individuals volunteering. I will jump into our budget now on the next page. These are our library funds that are required to be advertised and voted on by the board. Our operating, our debt service, our rainy day, and our library improvement reserve funds are required to be voted on and approved. In the first column is our 2023 budget. Next column is 22, the change and the percent change. The operating fund is increasing this year. We had some cash reserves during the pandemic, so we are able to set aside some funds for some salary market adjustments that we implemented. We also did zero-based budgeting this year to try to align all of our directors' funds more in line with what they'll actually be. So that is the big increase from 2023, from 2022 to 2023 mostly. Our debt service, those amounts are the required debt payments that we have to make to those that hold our bonds that we issue. The rainy day, we're projecting $1 million in that fund for incidental construction expenditures that may occur before a bond issue has happened. And we also have our library improvement reserve. We're planning to spend $250,000 out of that. Our accounting software, Munis, is requiring an upgrade. This was budgeted in 2022, but it did not occur, mostly due to Tyler. That corporation did not have enough employees. As everyone's having trouble finding employees, it was delayed a year. So these are our 4 funds. At the bottom of this page are the adopted tax levy and the adopted tax rate. With our bond funds, we have always tried to keep that at 0.0318 for $100. That's been our ongoing commitment to keep it at that or below and not go above that. I'll go ahead and go to the next page. Oops. There you go. This is the tax rate history that gives you a history of our tax rate on property taxes per $100. So as you can see, the debt service is historically at 0.0318 or thereabout. The operating will actually probably, the rate looks like it will be going down for 2023. We recently received new information, new estimates from the Department of Local Government and Finance that while our assessed values are going up in the county, this is also affecting the circuit breaker cap, which limits how much property taxes homeowners pay that are capped at. Because debt is required to be paid first, the circuit breaker is going to affect our operating fund. We're going to receive less in our operating fund than we projected a month ago. So that is why on the operating line here, the tax rate in 2022 was 0.1015. It is dropping to 0.0905 will be the estimated tax rate for 2023 for the library. So it is dropping. Yes,
Caroline,
Pat.
go over that again. What is the negative impact of the circuit breaker?
The Department of Local Government and Finance provides estimates of the assessed value increases and the effect and the circuit breaker effect. So recently, they had a projection that increased. I have to be careful with my words. It increased the circuit breaker effect by $3.4 million, which is not a good increase. It is not a good increase for library. that increase reduces the actual amount of property tax revenue we will receive by 3.4 million. And the effect of that is to reduce our property tax rate 0.0905 per $100 of assessed value. And it is my understanding, most of the units are having to deal with this, or were given these similar protections. To review the 2023 budget priorities, and these are very similar to last year's budget priorities. It's just there to increase leadership, intercultural awareness. We continue to work on the climate improvement study that was presented earlier this year. Develop a culture of racial equity, strengthen organizational framework, increase our collaboration with schools. We have incorporated some IPS school systems into our shared system recently. Adapt library services and leverage technology to improve service to patrons. Retain and attract diverse, highly competent and knowledgeable staff. And continue to provide welcoming, clean, safe, and accessible branch locations. Given these goals, we do have some challenges on the next page. Our revenue challenges are that the net property tax receipts are decreasing by 2.4 million from 2022. So for the first time in recent history, our property tax revenue is estimated to go down from the prior year. Next bullet point, the impact of the circuit breaker continues to grow, estimated at 27% of the levy in 2023. It was not this high in previous years. There is also no growth in the levy freeze amount in our intergovernmental revenue. And there's a lack of comparable share of lit certified shares when compared to other Indiana libraries. So the Indianapolis Public Library does not get as big a piece of pie from lit as libraries in other counties. The expenditure challenges are increasing personnel costs as a lot of companies are dealing with when there's turnover and we try to get new people in, the rates to hire these people in is much higher than what our current minimum pay grades allow. We're also trying to meet the demand of e-resources as they're requested by our patrons. And there's a lack of flexibility due to high fixed costs from our facilities, also having to deal with inflation issues. And there's an increasing ongoing cost of technology and the trend towards software as a service, which means you pay for software every year instead of as a license, instead of actually purchase the software and not have to pay for it then for several years. On the next page is our 2023 budget for our operating fund, which is where our operating expenses come from. So here we have history on our 2021 actuals, our 2022 adopted budget, and our 2023 proposed budget. Under revenue, these are our 5 main categories. Our property taxes, the net effect after the circuit breakers that we're anticipating getting 36.9 million in property taxes. And these are estimates provided by the DLGF. Our intergovernmental projections are going up slightly to 8.5 million. Charges for services are like faxing charges and printing charges for patrons. We're holding that flat right now, so we don't know if that's actually going to increase. And then our fines and fees are going slightly up as more branches, as our branch hours have opened back up post-pandemic. And then also our other revenue includes some specific donations for our children's museum is in there. And we're kind of holding that flat as well. Our events department, which we rent Central Library out for events, that revenue's in there. And then under expenses, we have 4 main character codes: personal services, supplies, other services and charges, and capital outlay. So as you can see, our increase under personal services includes money we have set aside for salary adjustments. And this also includes benefit increases in medical, for example. And the other line items are remaining the same or have actually decreased somewhat as we do zero-based budgeting. We've been able to move some of our charges up into the personal services from other services and charges. So you can see our revenue is less than our expenses, but we do have a cash reserve at the moment that we were planning to use to help fund the budget. And then on the next page is a breakdown of our operating fund revenues. I'm showing that we get 79% of our 79% of our revenues from property taxes, which is unlike other municipal corporations, we get a very large portion of our revenue from property taxes. So the circuit breaker increase, we really have to look closely at that and manage our budget. And the other categories, as you can see on this pie chart, are listed. And then on the next page are our operating fund expenses, broken down by the 4 categories with some detail. But our personal services, which are benefits and salaries, are 66% of our budget. Then going on to the next page, this lists our debt service fund and the specific bonds that we have outstanding and the required payments that are to be made in 2023, coming to the total there. I'll go through the rest of these slides. It is good to note this year that on April 6th, we had our groundbreaking at Fort Bend location, and that's estimated that building will be completed in early January 2023. We also had our Glendale branch groundbreaking on April 21st, which that will be opening in early 2023 as well. Glendale will be moving from a leased location into a location that we own, so that will help save us some money going down the road. On the next page, I go through the rainy day fund and the library improvement reserve fund, detailing what those expenses are, as I've already mentioned. On the last page is our detailed long-range plan that was just recently updated with this information on the circuit breaker. In our finance committees, in our monthly finance committee meeting, we continue to discuss our long-range plan, but I wanted to include it in part of this projection to show the decrease that we need to watch carefully in our fund balance going forward. That was the end of the presentation. Are there any questions?
Would you say just a little bit more about the intergovernmental funding?
So that's required. That's like federal income tax. It's not federal income tax, I misspoke. Let me get the details on that real quick, so I don't misspeak. So these funds include excise taxes that the county collects, local option income tax, lit certified shares, commercial vehicle excise tax, and financial institutions tax. So these are taxes that flow through to us from the county. And, obviously we get an estimate of what those anticipate to grow by and put those into our budget. Other than lit, I'm not sure we have much leeway in asking for more money in those categories. And I distributed a budget book to you, a bound copy. That information's on page 12, if you want to look at it in detail. Any other questions?
Ms. Show, did you want to say anything on the budget?
Yes, I would like to thank Carolyn Adams and the rest of the accounting staff
for gathering this information and presenting it to us in a way that we could unpack it. I would also like to say that as soon as Carolyn heard about the change in the circuit breaker last week, she immediately started moving to make changes to our projections and to communicate that to us as an organization. So I appreciate that as well. We are trying fervently to speak with our elected officials to let them understand where we are financially. We're trying to be very good stewards of our funds, being very careful in how we're spending. However, there are some things that we don't have control over. And some of those things that we talked about were inflation, subscription costs, things of that nature. In addition to that, staffing increases as far as hiring on new staff who want additional funds because of the increases in our economy. So we are at a juncture that we have to look at things very, very carefully and have to advocate fully for our organization to be funded. So we have world-class staff and we want to support them as such. So I'm confident that we'll be able to meet this challenge, but it is a challenge.
Any questions from the board?
What are your concerns in regards to the cash reserves continuously being what we rely upon?
My concern is that I don't think that that's a sustainable model, that we need to have more money coming from COIT. So as it stands right now, 1% of our budget is funded from COIT. And if you compare us to other counties, St. Joseph County, which is South Bend, is 10%. Carmel Clay Public Library is 30%. So those are large discrepancies. And if we could even make incremental additions to that, that will put us in a much stronger position.
It's helpful to know, and that's part of the plan going forward.
Yes, again, that's not necessarily in our control, but we are advocating for that.
That's at the state level, right?
No, it's local.
All right, any other questions or comments from the board?
I guess I have a question. So I know that we had some discussions previously with the council about making increases to what, Ms. Hayes was just speaking about. How is that discussion now with them, or has there been any additional follow-up to offset some of the, declining deficit, not deficit, but decline that we see in revenue streams?
I can speak to what I've heard and I'll let Michelle pick up on any additional information. It has been received well and noted that we need additional lit. I imagine right now with hearing about the circuit breaker loss, it's probably that a lot of the units are having to deal with money, and we're not sure if this will be continued to be heard and discussed, or if it's just like a lot of units are dealing with this and everyone needs to live within their means, which we are doing. But I would say we're not getting, right now from what I heard, there's a lot of work still to try to get this increase going. Are you hearing anything?
So what I will add to that is that we've spoken with several city county councilors, as well as an aide to the mayor, and we've explained to them our budget. I think another component of that we have to continue to say over and over and over again is that we have a compression issue with our staffing salary models. So what that means is that most of our staff are in the bottom third of the pay band. So not only do we need to bring people up in what they're making, we need to bring them over, because those are some of the things that we're dealing with. And so we're going to have to continue to say this and also communicate the urgency. It's not just because we'd like to get some new things or it would be great to have this. This is just a matter of urgency because we have to take care of our staff.
Additional questions or comments from the board? I want to thank both our interim CEO and Carolyn for the presentation. I will invite now the public to make comments on our proposed 2023 budget. I don't think anyone signed up. I will consider a motion to close the public meeting on our budget.
So, second.
All right, any discussion, being none. Carolyn, can you take a roll on the motion? I'm not Carolyn, Angie, sorry. My bad.
Yes,
Wrong one.
Mr. Peterman,
Approved.
Mr. Bixby,
Approved.
Dr. Hurtado,
Approved.
Ms. Payne,
Approved.
Judge Salinas,
Approved.
and Mr. Wolf. Approved. Thank you.
All right, we will adjourn the public hearing and go on to the regular meeting as we convene with finance committee. Of the special meeting. I don't think we have any other business, right? So I'm gonna adjourn the public meeting, the special meeting. And we'll transition right into the 10:30. 10:30